And you guys can see my screen? All good?
Yeah, you can see it.
So we'll do Unity for Media Entertainment today. And let me click on here. Here we go. And about me, I'm Ben Radcliff. I'm the Media and Entertainment Technology Evangelist. Actually, I'm the Technical Specialist. We've actually just changed titles, so I have to change that. And here's my contact information and my Twitter and Instagram if you guys want to reach out to me later. A bit about me. This is where I come from. I spent about 20 years in the film and animation industries. I worked at places like Disney, DreamWorks, MPC, and I spent a majority of my career at Lucasfilm and Industrial Light and Magic. And here's some of the projects I worked on before joining Unity about 2 years ago. The last projects I worked on were the last two Avengers films before joining Unity. And as I said, we had lots of technical issues on my last presentation last week. So I ask you all to embrace the chaos as we're all kind of remote and going over Zoom in a less than ideal situation. So thank you for your patience. Yeah, let's start here. And as you guys know, it's a Unity user group. Unity is the world's leading platform for creating, operating interactive real-time 3D content. And our mission statement and our motto is, we believe the world is a better place with more creators in it. Since you guys are all Unity savvy and you guys know about Unity, I'm not going to go a lot over the company details. I think that a lot of that has been published in the press recently. But what is Unity for Media Entertainment? And that's what people are asking. Everyone knows about Unity as a platform for game creation and also for industrial, but I work in media entertainment. And what does that mean? That means basically film and television, advertising and marketing, which is a lot of commercials, both commercials and a lot of interactive location-based experience and AR experiences. And then events and experiences, which is, again, location-based VR, and also like AR experiences and experiences based upon location, whether it be a sports stadium or a restaurant. And then sports, separate from location bases, we're doing a lot in the sports world. I think, people are really looking to, how do you make sports content interactive for the future? Like, how do you go back and see that goal and replay it in real-time 3D and look at it from any other angle? So we're working a lot with volumetric capture and 5G in that space, which is really, really exciting. And I always put this slide, this is an old slide from an old deck, but the way media is consumed is changing. I think the way media is created, consumed, and distributed is changing, but I know this is me. I have a small child, I have a daughter, and I can't wake her up, so I tend to watch everything on my iPad. I spend more time watching things on my iPad than I do spend watching it on an actual television or going to a theater. And I'm going to talk a little bit about IP. People always ask me, like, what trends are you seeing in, the entertainment world? And it's all about future-proofing your IP. And I always use Marvel as an example of that. I mean, it started as a comic book. Now it's a blockbuster movie series. It's mobile games. It's animation. It's console games. It's, location-based entertainment, VR. It's everything. And people really want to keep your eyeballs and keep your attention, whether you're a Harry Potter fan, a Marvel fan, or maybe like a Manchester United fan. It's all about keeping the fans engaged 24/7. So, let's see my video. So I put a bunch of examples of stuff. This is a bit of an old example, but I really love this video. I think this is one of the best examples of showing, virtual production in filmmaking. I actually was an artist on this film, so it was a bit of a personal story to me. But yeah, this is, Ready Player One. It's a couple years old, but a lot of this movie has like an enormous amount of CG and an enormous amount of complex CG. And the only way this movie would have been able to be made for the budget, it was still in, like a $200 million budget, but it's basically a $500 million film made for $200 million because of Spielberg was able to go in and make a lot of the creative decisions early on in the process. I personally worked on the race car sequence, and a lot of that, instead of going into renders and going back and forth with the creative director, and that was my old boss, you see, he was able to block this movie out and pretty much make a final animatic form and just say, make it look cooler. And I always tell the anecdote story that when Spielberg was on set, he was, looking at the shots in the Vive headset, and he was drinking like 20 cans of Diet Coke a day, and he kept taking the headset off. and then drinking his Diet Coke and then putting the headset back on, and it was really slowing things down. So they actually put a Vive tracker on his Diet Coke and then modeled a can out of a cylinder so he could keep drinking his Diet Coke in VR as he shoots in VR, making a movie about VR. So that's pretty exciting. Lion King is another one. I think everyone in the world knows this story, where Lion King was made in VR again. It was completely made virtually in Unity, and they went in again in Vive trackers and shot it like a traditional film, but in VR. And then when they had that final cut and all the blocking and the set dressing decided upon, then they handed it over to the visual effects artists to kind of really plus it up and add all that, high res detail. I did not work on this one, but I did work on the Jungle Book one before this. I always include this example. I think this is great as well. Coco VR. So this is a VR. It's a collaborative. It's free. It's a couple years old now, but it's really important in like the history of virtual production and virtual collaboration, because this was just a VR world collaboration experience done by Pixar. And one of the things was they used the actual Coco assets, and they down-res them and optimized the polys and redid the materials. But they worked with a company called Magnopus that made this experience. And one of the things about this is when they were reviewing it, they were reviewing it remotely. And so like the key creatives like Ed Catmull and so forth could go on, they can go in their office and put on their Vive headsets, and then they could look at this experience and give notes. And it really dawned on them as that's a really interesting way to review and collaborate on experiences. And they've been using Unity ever since to review their sets. And my buddy worked on Toy Story 4, and he told me that they were reviewing the sets of Toy Story 4 from the point of views of Buzz and Woody, so they could get a sense of being in the world from a toy scale, which is really kind of cool. This is Baymax Dreams. This is a brand new episode. We have brand new episodes. This is a couple years old as well, but this is our collaboration with Disney Television Animation. And they really wanted to reinvent the process of how they create animation. So instead of going through a traditional painting process, storyboarding into animatics, cutting that reel, they really explored how they can use modern tools, such as VR-based tools, such as Gravity Sketch and Tilt Brush, to really kind of block out their world and start in a three-dimensional context. And then they created their world within Unity and then filmed it more like a traditional film, as opposed to going through that, traditional process of storyboard, previs, editing. It was more of just a circular process as opposed to like a waterfall pipeline, which is really fun. And these are brand new episodes that just got released about a month ago. So check them out. They're on YouTube. Cuphead. This is a great one. This is kind of a reverse example I put here, because I think this is like an amazingly meta story where Cuphead, which is the hardest game ever. I've been playing it for about a year, and I'm like 37% along. But this is a video game. It was started off as an Xbox game in the style of a 1930s cartoon. It was all made in Unity. But I include this because this has now become a real property. So it was a fictional cartoon. It was a game like a fictional cartoon, but now it's become a real cartoon. Netflix has actually picked this up, and they're making the Cuphead show, and that'll be out next year on Netflix. And I'm going to show this real quick. This is Wind Up. This is one of our internal productions. This is my colleague, E. Bing. She's a ex-Disney look dev artist, and she also was a look dev artist on Uncharted series, I think Uncharted 4. And so she's been making this with a small team collaboratively all over the world for the past year. And it's right now in the festivals circuit. So shameless plug. So we'll take a look at the trailer of this. Let's go next slide. Next slide. Brace the chaos. So this is another great one too. This is a company I work with in Scandinavia. It's based out of Stockholm, Sweden. And this is Fixie the Fox. This is kind of the Nordic Entertainment. It's a local broadcaster, and they made their mascot is Fixie the Fox. So they wanted to make a Fixie the Fox animated series. And because animated series is very expensive and time consuming to make, it's hard to make regional content. So they wanted their own property in their own language with their own cultural stories. And because of the power of real time and motion capture and virtual production, they were able to make their own animated series at a fraction of the cost with a small team. And they could do it in-house without outsourcing it to Asia or India or China. So it's pretty unique. And they made, the numbers are staggering. I don't want to say the numbers, but they basically made a full animated series. They're working on season 2 and 3 now, but they were also able to dub it. So they did a version, they did AR-based face capture, and they were able to do face capture and dubbing for 4 languages for this series. So they did it in Norwegian, they did it in Finnish, they did it in Danish, and they did it in Swedish, which is a pretty impossible thing for a small team such as them, but they did it anyways. And just another note, as far as Unity community is, they basically hired the team off of our Unity Connect platform, and they bought a lot of their assets off the asset store. And one little fun fact too is the motion capture actress is actually, who plays the fox, is actually a famous children like celebrity. She's a famous TV host. So they actually brought in a series of kids to watch the episode live on the screen, and then they were able to have the actors come out in the motion capture and actually puppeteer the character live for the audience, which was really fun. This one's a great one too. I love this. So this is Baobab the Crow. This is in a, it's like a 40-minute interactive VR experience. And this is Baobab Studios. And Baobab Studios is pretty interesting because they are Extremeworks team. So it's Larry Cutler and Eric Darnell, and they were the head animator and the director of the Madagascar series of movies. So they went and formed their own company to tell new and interactive stories. But what's cool about this is they made a 40-minute interactive VR experience. And then they also, for those who don't have VR headsets, they released a 14-minute just flat animated version on YouTube. And they were able to film that animated version within that VR world, which is kind of exciting. So it's, again, extending the world and the universe and the characters beyond one medium. Marza Animation Plan. I'm including this because this represents our Unity Japan office, which does amazing, wonderful stuff. But this is Marza Animation Planet, and this is their recent short, The Peak. And they were pretty famous because they made one of the first animated shorts using a game engine a few years ago called The Gift. But what's really cool about this is Sega's animation studio, and they are using game engines and again reinventing the way the pipeline does. But I love the Toon Shader here. They were one of the first people to bring Alembics into a game engine, and now they're using toon shading. And a lot of people don't know this, but a lot of anime projects are actually, they look 2D and they have a painterly look, but they're actually done in 3D. And more of them are done in Unity because of our Unity Japan office's amazing Toon Shader. And Edmund and Lucy. I'm going to bust this one out live. Let's see how that works. I'm going to go hit that, and I'm going to bust this out because I want to show this one as a live presentation. I was at Annecy Film Festival a couple of years ago. Oh, John O'Reilly was there with us. And this was a big hit at that film festival. And this is Miam Animation. Let me hit play. And what I'm playing here is, it's actually not a, oh, volume's a little loud, that's okay. Get it playing. So this isn't a, I'm gonna turn my volume down a little momentarily. The thing about this series was made to be delivered as a traditional animated series. But this right here, what we're looking at, is an EXE. This is actually a build, so it's kind of conversion between animation and
It's still very, very loud.
Very loud.
I don't think changing your windows
Very loud.
You'll probably need to use the Windows mixer to change it down.
All right, I'm going to pause it. So one of the interesting things about this is an EXE build, and they showed this in the audience in Annecy, and everyone thought it was just a traditionally CG animated film because of the depth of field. But this is actually just an interactive 3D experience. So we can do different things, like we can change the environment.
today? But... Oh, yeah! Be right down! Good morning, Georgie Hoot! Any good news?
We'll stop sharing that. But what was interesting about that was it was so it was definitely loud. I don't have audio control on that. I need to rebuild that with audio control. But what was interesting about that is it was built as an exe, and those guys built it again like a 3D world, and then they filmed the episodes in that world. And the thing about that is it gets to take advantage of all the game stuff. So if you saw, I was changing the environment, I was making it snowy, I was making it sunny, but they also embedded the languages in. I don't know if you guys saw, but the newspaper, actually you could change languages and the type on the newspaper would change. So it really kind of combines, you know, game engines and all the cool stuff from game engines and content. So hypothetically, you know, you could distribute that on a tablet or a phone, and you don't have to upload it to a YouTube, or you don't have to upload it to a Netflix. You know, it could be in an independent app, and you could deliver episodes real time. And the cool thing about delivering those real times is you get to take advantage of all that interesting game stuff, like, you know, asset bundles and content management systems. So maybe the content's regionalized, and everyone who watches it in their own language. And maybe the characters are, you know, custom to the region. For example, you know, in China, the main character is a panda. In Canada, the main character is a raccoon, and so forth like that. But this was picked up. So based upon that demo, it was picked up for 52 12-minute episodes, and it's in production right now. So that's really exciting. All right. I'm going to show this as well. I think this is something really exciting. This is a company we're working with now, and they're based out of America, and it's a small creative agency. And they made this series of spots for Nike recently. And, you know, they were able to do it in a fraction of the time. I think they did their first commercial in just 2 weeks. And, you know, the premise is it's based upon a game style. So they decided to use an actual game engine. And I thought it had a really amazing style. And it's a really, really great team. And they're doing very cool things. And then Pure Imagination. This is another great win recently, where this is a company that uses Unity for their animation projects, and they are a big partner with Lego. And with the recent COVID crisis, they were able to, because of the fast production turnaround time, they were able to make a series of COVID-19 PSAs to tell people to, you know, wash their hands and do their masks. So they were able to use the Lego property and do this at record-breaking time. Instead of taking months to make these PSAs, they made them in weeks. Cool. So what I'm going to do now is talk about, so if some of you guys already work in animation and film, I'm going to go over some of the tools that we have just dedicated for the, you know, animation, film, entertainment markets. So here's a bit of a pipeline diagram, and we've kind of broken this up into environment artists, pipeline TD, shading, layout artists, lighters, compositors, effects artists, 3D modelers, riggers, directors. Basically, we have a tool for you. If you want to use Unity, here's a little outline of the tools that are available for you. And I've kind of mixed this up because I'm just going to go crazy and show what I think is cool. And I put this as a series of resources. So I'm going to put this slide deck on my Twitter after this. And I put a lot of links in here for you guys to go check out later. Well, first and foremost, we finally have visual scripting. So if you're someone who doesn't code and you want to do things visually, you know, we have visual scripting. It's now free, and it's now part of the package manager. So check it out. And it's not just for creating games. You know, you can create tools and interfaces. A lot of my friends work in virtual production, and they use they make a lot of tools using visual scripting. Getting your stuff in and out of Unity. We support all the major file formats. I think the two major file formats, the major file format in film and animation is Alembic, and that's just the geometry format. We also have FBX, which is kind of a legacy games format, but it's been updated recently by Autodesk. So you have more than 4 vertices per bone influence. So you can go up to, I think, 256 now. So it's actually a lot more versatile than it was before. So you don't need to go to heavy Alembics to get that kind of detail. And we're looking at next gen formats. I think USD is the biggest format in the industry right now. And what's cool about USD, where Alembic is just geometry, USD has, a skeleton description, it has a lighting description, it has a material description, and they've just recently integrated Material X, which is, Industrial Light and Magic's open source material description. I put some links here for photogrammetry tools. If you guys are new to Unity and you want to make some high-res content, I always recommend everyone starts with our Fontainebleau demo project. It's maintained to the latest version of HDRP, and it's basically our Paris graphics team went out and they photogrammetried an entire forest. And they also documented it. So they're giving away the assets, they're giving away the project. They made a white paper on the process they used to capture the assets. And we also have a de-lighting tool, which is kind of old now because actually we have something new and improved. I put this in. This is great. This is on the video playing is my colleague Saiku Sam. He's the Saiku Unity channel on YouTube, and he does a lot of like speed level design. And some of the tools he's using in here is Polybrush, ProGrids, and ProBuilder. And I think those tools are really great. And you can very quickly. I use Polybrush all the time with that Fontainebleau set that I just showed you guys. So you can quickly just grab some trees and start painting them. And it's a procedural scattering tool. And that's one other thing too. Unity is, first and foremost, a development platform. So, some of the studios we work with, like MPC, they built their in-house scattering tools on Unity based upon this concept, but they kind of went a little bit more crazy and industrial with it. Art Engine. Art Engine is a company we just bought, which is very cool. It's AI-powered assisted artistry for 3D content creation. Basically, it's a super smart AI-powered image processing and material creation tool. So if any of you do any material creation or texture maps, it's got a lot of really smart tools, and it does a lot of great things like up-resing. I've taken pictures with my iPhone, my old iPhone, some bad photos, taken them into here, and it's actually done wonders. You can do scene removal, color transforms, pattern unwarps. You can create normal maps in it. You can do de-lighting in it, which is really powerful. But basically, it's an example-based workflow. So you can take, like, I want to take this concrete look with this wood pattern floor, and I want to make a wood floor that looks like it's made out of concrete. And it's super easy to do and mix and match stuff. It's really, really powerful. HD render pipeline. You guys know what this is, hopefully, but this is our physically based lighting, physically based render for our scriptable render pipelines. But for what I just want to emphasize for media entertainment, which is really, really powerful, is it's physically based and it's in real world lighting units. So in like a boot camp I teach, we go online and we find out like lighting parameters. What is the color temperature in Kelvin? Is it 3200 Kelvin? Is it 5400 Kelvin? Is it cool? Is it warm? And then we can see like what are the light units of physical real world lights. And then inversely, our cameras are physically based too. So we can define our exposures based upon the camera. So it's really fun to go and simulate an Alexa 65 with a 2.8 aperture at 100 ISO at 1/200th of a second speed and see what kind of exposure you get. So you can really balance the exposure of the lighting and the camera just like in real world, or you can just fake it. Shader graph. This tool is getting better and better every day. The latest one you can create. What do you call it? But anyways, you can create what's the main node, the master node. You can have custom master nodes now, and you can do a lot with this. So for those who do shader creation or want to create a custom shader for their pipeline, you can do this. I see a lot of studios that have like a custom legacy Arnold or a V-Ray or a RenderMan shader, and they're basically using this tool to recreate that shader within Unity. And also in the new HDRP, if you guys haven't seen, we do have an experimental Arnold shader in there, and an experimental, I believe it's an Autodesk. It's the Stingray and the new Autodesk one. Visual effects graph. This is our GPU-based particle system, which basically enables you to create millions and millions and millions of particles based upon the power of your GPU. But what's also cool about this is you can drive these particles real time. Like I've integrated this. I've hooked up a MIDI controller, and I've hooked up an Intel RealSense controller, and I've hooked up an Xbox Kinect controller, and you can use those to kind of drive these particles real time. So it's pretty interesting. If those of you haven't seen Kajiro on Twitter, check out Kajiro's channel because he's doing a lot of that cool stuff. Runtime animation rigging. This is just a series of runtime constraints that you can layer on top of your rigs that come with your FBXs. So for example, if you do a motion capture session and your animation's kind of 95% there, and you don't want to go into Motion Builder or Maya, and you don't want to edit the data and republish it, you can throw a series of constraints right on top of the rig, and you can layer animation on top of existing animation. So that's a really cool tool. Mesh Sync, this has been around for a while. This will just create a link between, you know, Maya, Max, Motion Builder, Blender. So for example, if you're an animator, you can animate on one monitor in Maya, and then you can have a live connection between Unity, and you can see your animation real time in context of the scene. And this is also from our Unity Japan office. Timeline's been around for a while too. But in the context of animation studios, I think I'm seeing a lot of really interesting things. Like one, I'm seeing people record motion data into Unity and export it through our recorder. But also I'm seeing animation studios using it to mix audio, to do like a temp audio track. A couple animation studios I know, they set up all their audio three-dimensionally in Unity like a game, and they can time footsteps and effects animation and do all that stuff, whether they just do it manually or through events. And then they can also just export that audio track, and then they can give it to, a Foley artist to kind of add to do all the Foley and do, high quality sounds and final audio. So it's really cool as like a temp audio tool. Cinemachine, this is our procedural camera system. And it's basically a camera system without keyframes. So if you guys have never played with it, it's really interesting, where you can basically just give it a series of rules and say, always look at this character, always focus on his eyes, keep this distance and keep him in frame over to the left. And if he leaves here, follow him. And you can put like dampening and weight. So it basically gives an organic feel. You can apply camera shake. And you can also, again, custom lenses. You can put lenses here and build your own lens kits. And you can also build your own post-processing profiles. So every shot has a unique look. You can do custom grades, depth of field, all kinds of stuff. And that's what I was talking about here. Here's our post-processing stack. And here's all the cool stuff you can do. Blooms, chromatic aberration. I always do the really crazy stuff. Lens distortion, vignetting, tone mapping. And you can put, tone mapping, so you can put this stuff in ACES CG and make it look more filmic. But all that creative color image processing stuff you would typically do in an After Effects or a Nuke, you can now do directly in Engine. What's really cool about this actually is when you use things like, because I'm, traditionally in an animation studio, the effects guy does the effects and then he hands it to the compositor, and then the compositor takes it in and pumps up the color and pumps up the bloom. What's cool about this is, like in visual effects graph and combining post-processing, all the colors are HDR, so you can pump them up out of range. So that's something you can do in VFX graph, is you can put a post-processing stack, apply a glow and a bloom, and then you can pump that HDR color to give the particles what they're going to look in the final context, which, you can make fairy dust and glows and stuff really cool. UI authoring, we have a full set of authoring tools, all based upon, CSS and XML. So you can build runtime tools, whether you're building a virtual production platform or some AR-based tools, or you're building just some interface for a game, or some set dressing tools. Like I was saying, you can do interfaces at runtime and in editor mode. And here's our Heretic digital. Oh, I didn't put the autoplay. For those who haven't, this is our Heretic project, and we gave away this digital human, and the other one was the visual effects graph. So we've given away our visual effects graph package and our digital human, and it's on our asset store. So you can download this character, play with him. I was ripping him apart, combining with animation rigging. I was trying to make him breakdance, but it got a little out of control. But I highly recommend you take this, download this, pick it apart, take a look at the skin shader, the eye shader, and everything we've done. So let's go with some pipeline tools. So that was some of the artist tools. Just so you guys, if you're working in animation or visual effects today, we do have Python integration. We have Python 2.7, I believe, and then we're coming on Python 3.0. We also have Unity for Linux. So if you're a Linux-based studio, we have CentOS 7 support. I believe it's in beta now. I'm not sure when it's coming out. And we also, like I was saying, the Unity image recorder, which is huge improvements for Unity 20.2. So you'll be able to output AOVs with light decomposition. So if you're used to working in an Arnold V-Ray, breaking things up by diffuse, specular, bounce, all that, you'll be able to do that in the latest version of the recorder, and bring those into, say, for example, Nuke for final compositing. But you'll also be able to custom, write your own AOVs as well. And if you wanted to make your own matte solution or whatever, really. And you can, like I said, you can also output audio and you can output motion from our recorder as well. And we recently joined the Academy Software Foundation. So this is really important. So not just what we're doing internally at Unity, but we're also dedicating resources and development time for the community at large. So these are some of the famous projects from the ASWF, OpenEXR, ACES, Material X, OpenVDB for particles, USD, OpenTimeline.io, OpenSubdiv, and there's CryptoMats on there. And Blender is part of the open source initiative. And we've given money to the Academy Software Foundation, but we're also supporting Blender as well. So we've donated money because we think that tool and those guys are awesome. And then there's some, XR tools I wanted to take a quick look at as well, because I think, going back to the way we create, distribute, and consume content is changing. I think it is. And Unity is also a development, people think of it as a game engine, but there's no difference between a game and software. I mean, Unity is first and foremost a development platform, and people don't realize Tilt Brush was made in Unity, Tavori was made in Unity, Gravity Sketch was made in Unity. So a lot of times I work with studios that they're creating their in-house tools. They're using Unity to build their own in-house tools. Like, for example, MPC built a set dressing tool for Lion King out of Unity. And then we have XR Interaction Toolkit. This is our own version of, VRTK. And it has all cross-platform and AR. So if you basically just wanted an easy way to set up interactions in VR, which is great because then you can build your worlds. Say you're building an animated world, you can build that very quickly in VR. And then there's Editor XR. So if you wanted to actually use the Unity editor in XR, for example, again, like VR world building to build your virtual worlds to film your content in. And here's some features here. And then there's Mars. And if you guys know what Mars is, I'll just play the video for us real quick.
What's Unity Mars? Well, certainly not the planet, but it really knows this world. Unity Mars gives you everything you need to create powerful mixed and augmented reality experiences that interact intelligently with the real world at any location and with any type of data. Need to visualize a place or product, create a unique experience for an event, train up your staff? No problem. Imagine the possibilities as you author for games, sales, marketing, and more for any device or hardware platform. With Unity Mars, you can quickly capture and assemble real-world assets like locations, objects, and props. Then, just drag and drop them and test on the fly, all without leaving the Unity editor. Unity Mars experiences are powerful, interactive, and intelligent. Build once and deploy on any AR-enabled device. Get Unity Mars now and shape the world.
And I showed Mars is because, like I was showing before, what Mars basically does is three things. It's how do you define content in the real world? So AR is more than just placing an object on a flat surface. And how do you test against the real world? And how do you run content that'll perform in the real world? And why this is important is how do you populate and bring your content out of your animated content into the real world? And a great studio used this recently to make a Wallace and Gromit AR experience. And they also made a Dr. Seuss AR experience. So how do you get your characters out of your cartoons and into the real world? And I think Mars will be a big tool to help people do that. And we'll just cut through here. And I just want to, end on this Learn Unity. We have this real-time animated storytelling course. So I highly recommend you check it out. It'll go over pretty much all the tools that I talked about in this presentation today. But also, as I said, I'm working with Elena right now. So hopefully in November, I'm going to teach a 6-part. It's going to be 6 2-hour sessions on Zoom for free. And I'm going to go through this content and go a little bit above and beyond and a little bit of a mix and match and do some other crazy stuff. And I'll be teaching this content. So keep your, keep in contact with the user group and keep in contact with Elena, and we'll get that information to you. And thank you very much. And here's my contact information if you ever have any questions. So I'll stop sharing and see if we have any Q&A.